Hey, Donald. I heard you're trying to start a new story, but you keep getting pulled back onto the Megazoic train.
I'm trying my best to get to work on this new idea of mine, but I keep getting pulled back into old, comfortable thoughts. Ooh, I should work more on the Megazoic real-time strategy game. I need to keep going on the Megazoic script. Of course, I'll get my mother to sew some exclusive Megazoic handkerchiefs. I need to stop letting these thoughts tempt me into remaining stagnant as a writer. Can you help me, David? Can you help me?
I sure can. There are new ways to give someone like you a conscience that keeps you from leaning too far in the wrong direction. Let me take you to this experimental lab where these top flight scientists can give you a dosage of this symbiotic goop from outer space.
Wow, that's not the direction I thought this would go, but okay.
Put on this hospital gown first, then strap yourself to this bolted chair, and try to relax as the scientists work their magic.
That's a bit of a contradictory wording, but...
And there you go, Donald. You're now bonded with the symbiotic goop from outer space. He will act as your conscience.
Hello, Donald. I am the symbiotic goop from outer space. I will now act as your conscience.
Hi, symbiotic goop from outer space.
Oh, do not mind my monstrous voice. I am a peaceful, well-meaning being who seeks to aid my host in difficult situations.
See, Donald? There's nothing to worry about. Now, take him home with you and act as you would. You won't even notice him most of the time.
Okay. Going home now.
Actually, I'm a bit hungry now that I think about it. Can we stop at that fine restaurant on the way to your house? I have the biggest craving for lobster ravioli right now.
Fine, whatever.
And so, after spending some precious time and money to satisfy the symbiotic goop from outer space now residing in his system, Donald made his way back home and started working on his next writing project, like a good writer should, and like Matthew Donald surely does. Totally. Every day. He sat at his desk, with his laptop in hand and ideas churning within the neurological whirlpool of his brain, newly formed with extra symbiotic goop from outer space, ready to get to work on something awesome.
Oh, what to write? Ooh, I know! I'll get to work programming the Tyrannian faction in the Megazoic real-time strategy game. Oh, there's nothing better than...
Should you really be focusing on more Megazoic projects, Donald?
I sure would like to, symbiotic goop from outer space.
You know you're a better writer than that, Donald. You have many ideas to work with, and you should expand your creative horizons rather than limit yourself to just one concept.
Oh, I suppose you're right. Fine, what should I write? Should I work more on the first draft of my news story? Add more to its plot outline, perhaps?
How about a nice email to your mother?
What?
You never speak to your mother anymore, Donald. You need to remind her how much she means to you.
Oh, I don't need this crap. What kind of dumb idea is that?
I'm just trying to help you be the best you can be, Donald.
Alright, fine. I'll text her real quick. God. And they're sent. Alright, you happy now?
The real question is, are you happy, Donald?
Not particularly, no. I've got this sissy-ass symbiotic sludge from space sticking his stinky snout into all my stuff.
Wow, what a wonderful alliteration there.
Silence!
The symbiotic goop from outer space stayed with Donald, keeping his focus on other, non-Megazoic related stories to write, while subtly guiding him toward other opportunities to be a better person, the best you can be, as any good conscience should.
You should teach a writing class.
A writing class? No, that's the last thing I want to do.
You've got this wonderful gift, Donald. You should use it for the betterment of your fellow writers.
Listen, you sick sack of galactic goop. There are two ways to fail as a writer. One is to get rejected by literally every publisher and literary agent on the planet, and the other is to become a writing teacher. There's no way I'm doing that.
Also, you should write love songs. They're so sentimental and sell like hotcakes. You'd be a writing sensation overnight.
That's it! I'm sick of your crap. I knew a symbiotic goop from outer space was a bad idea. I don't need a writing conscience. I can write my own stories. I'm getting rid of you once and for all.
But you can't. We're symbiotically linked now.
Oh, I've seen Spider-Man 3. Sound is your weakness. Bring out the church bells!
No!
Get out of me, symbiotic space poop! Get out of me! Fall, you sludge! Fall to the ground!
Donald, are you in here? I lost my gig as a narrator, and I wanted to see how that symbiotic goop from outer space was working for you. Donald? Donald? Ah! The space goop is falling on me! It's attaching to me! It's bonding to me! Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show with writing as a theme and relevance, heck, even competence as a dream.
We're so self-deprecating, aren't we? But at least it's justified.
We are justified, and still somehow magically better than the listeners. But anyway, we're starting a new set this week. If you've already seen the title at this point, we're talking about things related to characters and awesome, something like that. But because this is an opening episode from our set, let's go ahead to our usual segment. What will we rip off from this month?
We're not going to reflect on the fact that, like, this will be the first time in a while that we've managed to do, I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, no technical difficulties, but we would do, like, a complete set all at once.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to give them that peek behind the curtain, Donald, you could, but no, that's okay.
I mean, they can see it based on the episodes from last time.
Well, because they listen to them separately, do they really hear that?
I don't know. I'd like to think people tune in every week. Probably not.
Well, there are probably people who do. Anyways, sure.
Yes.
Okay,
usual segment.
Over. What will we rip off from this month? Starting with you this time.
Cool. Hey, guess what, David? I'm reading another book!
Oh my god.
That's 4 since we've started the podcast, right? I believe there's...
haven't actually been tracking, but I'm sure it'd be easy to do.
So I believe that that's 2 left. Then before I broke my deal with Satan and fire starts, raining from the heavens. But never mind that.
Jeez.
I'm reading Ghosts of Empire, the 4th book of the Ghost series by George Mann. See, I was not aware this was the 4th installment until I started reading and noticing all the callbacks to events I had never heard of. At which point I looked it up and, yep, this is the 4th one.
Oh, well, I would hate reading them that way myself, but, go for it.
Normally I would too, but I guess I had no choice here. I just bought this, like, oh, that looks cool. It doesn't mark which one it is. So.
Yeah, those things without demarcation are kind of hard to track sometimes.
See, this is why, in my books...
You have Roman numerals on the covers?
On Roman numerals on the spines, yes.
On the spines, excuse me. Yeah.
And also in the first page it's like, Megazoic, book whatever, subtitle. Or just Megazoic book 1.
I was about to say, there's no subtitle for the first, is there? Speaking of which, buy that on Amazon.com.
Okay. Alright, so, basically, Ghosts of Empire, it's like, this Ghost series, it's like a steampunk series. I believe in the early to mid 20th century. I can't tell. It doesn't say. It probably said in the first book, which I suppose I gotta read.
Which means you'll only have 1 left before fire rains from the heavens.
Oh God, you're right. And this is 4, so I can't catch up without dooming the world.
I mean, if you read them all, but if you read the first one, you might be able to at least get enough to get by.
Yeah, I suppose. All right,
perhaps.
Well, I can't.
Anyway,
all right. Well, to be fair, I've read more books than that. I just can't mention them on the podcast.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say is, maybe, if you do read the first one of this series, that then you should read the Bible, because it's basic instructions before leaving Earth, which you're going to need if fire's raining down from the heavens.
I thought you were
going to
say, read the Bible to repent my sins. And
No.
Figure out how to get out of this deal with the devil I've made.
Well, deals with the devil, always devil in the details, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Why don't you tell me more about the series?
Okay, so, as well as steampunk, though, there's, like, spirits and demons and other supernatural stuff all throbbing about. I don't know what the word is. And the main character is this quasi-superhero named the Ghost. His real name is Gabriel something, I forget. But with ghosts, with gadgets and goggles and other stuff to deal with the rampant demons and the evil humans trying to use them. It's all pretty fun.
You've been reading this book so well, you don't even remember the character's name.
I know it's Gabriel. I don't remember his last name.
All right.
Anyway, what I'd like to rip off from it, though, specifically, is the fun melding of magic and technology. Now, I've done this before, like in my older versions of Mechazoic, which I guess you'll... No, we already talked about them, so you won't hear more about them. And
a different
so
time.
No potential foghorn. But
darn it! Looking for how to use that sound effect so much.
We'll get there. I think I have it in my notes somewhere in here.
Somewhere in here we do, but let's not worry about it right now.
Anyways, so when I did it, though, it's more of a clashing sort of matter, not like the blending like George Mann does here in these books.
Sure.
There's like weird machines powered by magic, that kind of stuff. It's pretty neat. Someday, maybe, I'll do something like that, but who knows when, though.
Well, and I was going to say, obviously a huge Power Rangers fan. There is a guy on YouTube and plenty other places as well known as Linkara.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen some of those videos with you about
Power
Rangers.
And did the history of Power Rangers video series, and one of the things he mentioned in the first season was that how it's kind of portrayed as a magic versus technology angle. So, the clashing thing is
I guess that's true. Like, Rita Repulsa is a witch, but she's battling these guys with mechs and guns
all of
and
this,
combiner mechs.
I suppose futuristic isn't necessarily the correct term, but technology anyway. Off-world technology is the way they describe it.
I never thought about that. Power Rangers is deeper than I thought.
Amazing what happened if you'd actually look at it. Anyways,
you've made me watch some of that Zero Ranger stuff. So.
Which is the series that show was based on, the season we're talking about anyway.
Right,
Anyhow. Usually
what
those two forces are opposing. As for me, I've watched a decent string of stuff since last time because, we had the whole, special need for guest host and crap and all the special episodes and whatnot.
Right.
God, was it 2 months since we did one of these segments, maybe?
It's been a while, a month and a half at least.
Something like that. Anyway, either it's a repeat mention, although, to be fair, at least a new idea from that show.
Right.
Or not worth ripping off, or something I'm so ashamed of watching that I can't really tell how I likely wouldn't use it anyway. So what's left over? The repeat
so you were watching, okay, I've already said My Little Pony.
I knew you were going to go there, too.
Sophia the First, that weird Disney princess for little girls? How about that one, no?
Sure. My younger sister loves that show.
Tinkerbell stuff. Tinkerbell. That's what you were watching.
I'm so ashamed of watching it at all that I can't really tell you how I likely wouldn't use it anyway. Moving on. What's left over? The new idea from that repeat show is...
Glee! How about that one? Sorry, that's the last one. Glee's pretty...
Actually, I wouldn't be ashamed of that because it's a music-based show and I love music.
You wouldn't be ashamed, or you said?
I wouldn't be ashamed of watching it.
Oh, but it's
I
so
wouldn't
cheesy.
Use it it's
like High School Musical, the series.
Which I haven't seen High School Musical, so that gives me no reference.
But anyway. I'd be ashamed if you were watching it. All right,
but their covers of music are really good. Speaking of Glee, anyways,
yes,
there is the new idea from a show I have mentioned before. Thus, I won't worry about sharing the name again. It's somewhere else. Go listen to our other episodes, listeners.
Whichever one it is, ding,
ding. Well, that's the joke. They have to go back and search. No, I'm kidding. Don't worry about it. So I've taken it at a slower pace than I normally watch through stuff. So it provided new fuel, but I'm still not done with the show yet. Namely, that fear is something to conquer yourself rather than just discarding it.
Right.
The episode in question I got this from utilized a strange plot line where soldiers I guess the word I want to use here is grafted their fear onto, like, stones, pebbles, and threw them to a guardian deity in the bottom of a local lake before going into battle. When the true nature of this deity is revealed, there's an emotional scene where the mentor character tells his team that lacking fear means not understanding the value of living.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, if you're
consider
not afraid
the case,
of death, you can't value life. You know, you can't respect life.
Exactly. If you
life
consider
is
the
precious
case,
because it's so easily destroyed. So,
and it's irreplaceable.
Exactly.
It did not come up in this episode, but there is the case of someone unafraid to die, and they'll certainly go further than somebody who, with a reasonable fear of death. You know, that when you think about that example, it checks out.
Right.
You're not afraid to sacrifice yourself. You're not afraid to put other people in danger because you're just not afraid. You know.
What was the thing that Harold Hill said in Music Man? I think we mentioned Music Man a lot in the show for some reason, maybe because of the Gary Indiana thing. But
and it's a very good musical. But that's
he said, like, a cowardly man dies 1,000 deaths. A brave man only 500.
Something like that. I can't remember the exact joke. Malign myself.
Yeah. Or maybe the other way around. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is just a gimmick thing from a fringe tokusatsu show. This show is called Kyodai Ken Biclosser. The first two words translate roughly to brother fist.
Wait, does Ken mean fist or brother?
Ken means fist. Kyodai is the word for sibling, but the kanji literally translates to brother. So it's kind of intriguing, I suppose, for people into that kind of thing, that the first kanji refers to older sibling, and the second refers to younger sibling. So literally could be transliterated as older,
what about
younger
twins?
Brother.
I mean, I guess even twins.
Well, twins still have birth order, I suppose.
Yeah. They're not born at the exact same time.
Nope, that would be murder on a woman's... Anyway, the first two words translate roughly to brother fist, and they are two brothers that fight against this evil force in the show. In the titular brothers' shared room, they sleep on a bunk bed that folds up against the wall when not in use. There's literally like a mechanic that they can just tip the beds up and it goes onto the wall. I need to have one in a character's room. That is so strange, fringe, but cool. I gotta use it.
I need that in my room. Like, I don't even have anyone to share it with.
You just want that.
I just want one bed that just folds into the wall.
That would be amazing. But then, making it might be kind of a...
Because then think about all the room I'd have.
Well, you can make more room with that setup. Anyway.
Right. Anyways.
So, new set. We are talking about awesome. And to start...
Awesome characters, specifically.
Yes.
Different types of awesome characters.
Particularly characters. As you've seen from the title, and we've wasted approximately 9-ish, after edits maybe, of your time. Oh, wait, sorry. That doesn't count the ad.
And my recording says 11 minutes, not counting the ad, so...
Well, I'm still not sure where it's going to end. So, like, approximately 15 minutes of your time. And we still haven't talked about this. We're talking about badasses. We've been wanting to do this one for a while.
I don't know why I did the Terminator theme there. I mean, he's pretty badass.
He is. But anyway, let's go ahead and start with the basics, and that is, in your own words, describe a badass character. Donald, go.
Describe a badass character. How could I even begin to describe a badass character? Man, it's just like the bad. I don't know where I'm going with this bit.
I have no idea where you're going with this bit.
Okay, well, badass can describe many facets of a character's personality. Sure. But mostly it entails the feats a character does. And this doesn't necessarily always pertain to combat. Like, Martin Luther King was a badass. Like, Martin Luther King Jr., he was a badass. And he was also one of the greatest pacifists in history. So
fair. Mahatma Gandhi probably qualifies in this realm as well.
Especially in Civilization when he has nukes.
Well, yeah.
That's an obscure reference that some people might get.
Some might get. Anyway.
But I think for this episode, though, it might be best to stick with combative badasses, as the other types of awesome characters are featured in the rest of the set, which we'll get to.
Well, some types. I'm gonna... Yeah. Okay, we'll talk.
Yeah.
I'll have my own
at least too. 3 other types.
we have at least 3 others, you're right.
Okay.
Stay tuned, listeners!
We're really good at covering everything, you know? Basically, a badass in this sense is a character that who not only performs amazing feats of strength or power, but also never gives up no matter the odds. A character can be physically weak and still be a competitive badass, such as when they hold up their weapon and stare down their enemy that greatly outmatches them. Yet they never back down, but face their enemy head on.
Sure.
That's badass.
Mm-hmm. It's inspiring.
Basically, if a character faces insurmountable odds and still keeps up the fight, they're badass. That's what I think.
I was hearing you talk about that and say that's badass. I think the best way to describe it is that these characters inspire the audience.
Yes, they certainly do. They make it's why it's rough to have this kind of stuff on kids shows because it's what's called imitative behavior.
Yeah.
The kid's like, oh yeah, I can do flips too. Wee! Little Timmy's in a wheelchair. Okay.
That was surprisingly dark. No, my younger brothers eventually found, I think there was from the season Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue.
Oh, for God's sake. No, it's fine. I mention dinosaurs all the time. You can mention Power Rangers all the time. Okay.
I'm bringing this up for a reason.
Okay.
And they watched this show, and they were inspired by the Midway edition called the Titanium Ranger to start trying the punches and kicks and stuff like that. The problem was that A, these are trained professionals who film this stuff, and B, there's a distinct difference between imitating kicks on open air without actual people and trying to do it to other people, and that was the problem.
That sounds
they were
like
trying
a bit
to
of
fight each other as opposed to fighting their imagination.
That's an important distinctive thing,
Yes, a pretty distinct thing. So
good distinction. That's the word. Okay.
Where is my brain? I don't know. Anyway, so that is something that you have to be careful with about media for kids. I'm assuming Disney had a field day with this. How many kids, after watching Tangled, started slapping their siblings with frying pans? The number has to be really up there. Well, considering easy access and blunt object,
I love that movie. That movie's way better than Frozen. Don't at me. But what were they thinking? What were they thinking doing that?
Well, I mean, at the same time, as a modernization of a very, very old story, I think it was kind of neat that she had, she's just trying to defend herself, so she grabbed whatever was closest to hand, and it turned out to be extremely useful.
Jason Bourne that way. Anything's a weapon.
Well, anything can be a weapon if used correctly, but, kids tend to imitate these, and that's why, people are saying that violent video games are causing the degeneration of our children.
Oh, they say that about everything. It used to be rock music.
There's that too.
It was rock music
something
once.
I've noticed. Sorry, last tangent on this, and then I'll get off elsewhere.
Okay.
Japanese media.
Okay.
Japanese media, particularly aimed at children,
seems
to expect them to handle a lot more than American media does American kids.
You know what's really funny to me? Are you done? Was that your point?
I mean,
or do you have more?
If you wanted me to go into more details, I could try and come up with examples of censorship. But that's such a thing. When it goes over to America, so think about anime that have come from Japan first and then got a dub, and they'll inevitably change some things to try and be less problematic, even though apparently kids can handle it in Japan, so why can't they handle it in the States?
You know what? I'm expecting, when... Alright, so, in the third Megazoic book, buy at Amazon.com, ding, a character that was in the first book is revealed to be gay. Now, also in this book, there's a lot of death and destruction and violence. Guess what parents of kids reading this are more likely to have a problem with? This country is fricked.
Well, let's not get too shady political.
Right, I just like...
This is not a political podcast. If you want that, Donald should record his own. I'm sure he'd love to do it.
Politics with mass. I can only imagine. Anyways, tangent over. Well, how is this badass? let's get back to
So, yeah, so my definition of badass, as I said, inspiring for one thing, but a badass is liable to make your jaw drop at least once per story.
hopefully at least once, yes.
Death-defying stunt, taking a stand against something no one else dares, out of left field surprising everyone else on the page, capable of stealing the scene, if not the whole darn book, if their exposure is maxed out.
Right, like in Lord of the Rings, Legolas, he does all the badass things. I really need to show you these movies so you can see him in action.
I've
He's
read
great.
the books. I know what you mean when you're referring to Legolas being a scene stealer. Aside from the fact that they cast a very photogenic actor.
I'm assuming this isn't in the books, but at one point, he gets a shield, he throws it downstairs, he hops on the shield, he surfs down the shield while going down the stairs, firing arrows at orcs as he's going down. And then once he reaches the bottom, the shield flies out and stabs an orc in the neck.
I suppose that's more of a visual thing. And we talked about, action directors taking over stuff when we talked about doing scripts. And I can't remember what episode that was, so I won't worry about the ding.
Okay, we're getting near the limit of dings for this episode.
Really? You're bringing it on yourself by limiting.
I know I am, but
anyway, yeah. So it's one of those things that there's that moment that everybody starts talking about, that everybody is like, "Oh my god!" For example, the one scene in Cap 2, The Winter Soldier, where he's literally like one hand holding the helicopter to the roof.
That's Civil War, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is Civil War. Cap 3. My bad.
Beautiful. Mwah.
Beautiful.
Those biceps. I would still die for them.
Anyways, that is certainly badass scene, and I don't even think that was the only one he had in that movie, because
he had plenty.
Inherently, he is an inspiring character, an inspirational kind of person. The thing that's weird about the word is that, it's kind of a colloquial term. They aren't necessarily bad. They're just amazing. They're inspiring. They are jaw-dropping.
Okay, here's the thing. I saw this comedian once. He was I think he was either Swiss or Polish or somewhere in from
Middle
Europe. And he was talking. He had learned English and he was doing comedy. He was saying that he is fascinated by the word ass because it means so much. And he talks about badass as one of those things. Usually when you add ass, at first I thought it just means butt. It turns out, no, there's far more meanings to it.
Donkey.
But also, he says that, badass means really cool. But, a lot of other times, if you say ass at the end of an adjective, it adds emphasis to it. There was slow ass traffic, or that was.
Yeah, there is that.
That's a blue ass shirt.
So you can't go half fast, right?
Sorry, I know we went on tangents, but I want to keep going. He's so funny because he's like, ass also means a person. Move your ass, but it means move you, not just your whole body.
Well, no, that's literally the part of his. Anyway.
And then he said, what's even more confusing is that you can divide ass. If you half-ass something, that means that you're not doing really good about it. It means you're not you're not giving it your all. But if you go even smaller and go a piece of ass, then it means that someone's really hot. It's really fascinating to think, this word, it's anyways, tangent.
I'm sure it's fascinating, but it has nothing to do with our conversation about badass characters.
Badass. Badass, you think, based on those descriptions, like slow-ass traffic or blue-ass shirt. Badass means, it's really, really bad. But no, it means it's really cool. So
counterintuitive. They might actually be bad. But anyway, let's move on.
What are the most effective ways to write a badass?
Go for it. You're up first.
Okay. I am first, aren't I? Okay. To fully engross the reader, it's probably best to not start out with your character performing these awesome feats like they're nothing. Have the story build up to that. Let the reader see the character for who they are before showing them what they're capable of. That way, they appreciate seeing a character they like do an awesome thing and are engaged in the awesome moment. if you deal all your badass cards too early, they're not going to hit as hard. So save those moments for when it truly counts. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's a proper way to handle them. Honestly, I'm trying to find words that don't make it sound like I'm saying exactly the same thing, because it's not exactly the same, but it is quite similar.
I'm just so effective at like saying exactly what needs to be said, wouldn't you say?
What does that make me? Frosting? The true climax of this character's...
No, I'm just kidding.
A piece of... What? I know. The true climax of this character's arc will leave the audience flabbergasted, either in a good or bad way, because it does work both ways.
Oh, yeah.
So tipping your hand too soon ruins that impact.
Right.
Sorry, I'm waiting for the train to pass. I should have actually waited a little longer, because now it's probably going to come through. Okay. You might assemble the puzzle piece by piece, or not even bring this character on the page until that perfectly timed moment. Captain Marvel. But having such an early peak only means there's nowhere to go but down, right?
Right, exactly. Well, like...
Also... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, with Captain Marvel, yeah, she's brought in at the end to help deal with the threat as it's big, but also that movie does a good job of, like, she doesn't start out as the unstoppable Superman character that she ends up becoming. She builds up to that in the movie. You haven't seen the movie yet, so...
No, I haven't seen the movie. I was referring to her appearance in Endgame, because...
Yeah, no, in Endgame, she's definitely she's already awesome, and so she's like, yeah, I'm awesome.
So she shows up at the perfect time and nowhere else, because they literally could not leave her in there without breaking the movie plot.
Right. Plus, with the whole time travel thing, it's probably... She had no stake in that. She had no reason to go back with them, so...
Fair enough.
And plus, I don't know, but anyways... Not
that I've seen the movie, so maybe she does. Shh, don't say anything.
In the movie,
anyway,
she starts out less powerful, and then she builds up to it.
God, you can't figure out what... Anyway. Also, keep in mind that not all badass acts resemble high-wire stunts or tentpole action scenes.
No, I think every single one of them does. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. was so badass. He was always on the high wire.
Yeah, because it's totally an action scene with Martin Luther King Jr. when he's standing up giving the I Have a Dream speech. That's totally a tentpole action sequence, Matt.
Yeah, he's totally the I Have a Dream speech while simultaneously fighting off ninjas. Sorry, is that in poor taste?
He wouldn't be fighting off. Anyway, if a character is badass, do they have to be this way all the time?
Absolutely not, because they are still human. Even if they're not literally human, like the characters in my Megazoic series. Buy on Amazon.com. No more. I recognize this is all my fault. I'm the one doing all this.
You only bring it on yourself.
It's not fair to you. Fine. Ding as much as you want. I'll edit it in, however. Okay.
I try not to take too much advantage of it. But anyway, you mentioned earlier that you kind of build them up, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
They couldn't be that way all the time if they're on screen and having that build. If they're not, then, different story. But
to really endear the reader to your character, show them at their normal moments. One's more relatable than just throwing a sword all over the place and carving their way through enemy hordes. I mean, that's always fun, of course. But
sure.
you don't have to necessarily do their normal moments often. But if you do it enough, it really helps the reader understand the character as a human, rather than a one-dimensional train of badass with no junctions or swerves in the slightest. Hopefully that metaphor makes sense.
Unless they're in your stories, because then they're not human.
Oh,
right?
Yes, of course. Thank you for reminding me.
Mr. Single Idea Writer over there.
One of these days, I'll write something that has humans as main characters. One of these days.
Let it be soon. Anyway.
Of course, like all writing rules, these can be broken if that's your intent, like showing them at their normal moments. Like, if you want to have a character who's merely a paragon for another deeper character to look up to, sure, he can just be a badass. If we're only meant to see this character through a lens of idolization, then show them that way. It all depends on how you want to tell the story.
Yeah. I was going to say something else about the whole, there are moments for it, depending on what story you're trying to tell. I think you say something about that later, too, so I'll try not to elaborate too much here.
I don't know. Who cares? I don't even remember at this point.
But, if they're in focus the whole time, I'd argue they can't. I mean, if they're not, if they only show up part of the time, and they can always be that badass type character, but I think if they're on your screen, on your page, every single page, then it gets kind of, we get you too used to it.
Right, no, exactly.
We
You wanna
grow
keep
accustomed
it fresh,
to it.
But
it depends on what story you're telling. If this character happens to be the titular character, it can't be constant. There needs to be some like on-off switch.
Exactly. No, they gotta show their non-badass, normal domestic side.
Something that they're capable of doing that isn't necessarily jaw-dropping. It's just a fact of who they are, part of life. They need to breathe, eat, sleep, use the facilities as nature calls, those kind of things. Final thoughts or other miscellaneous tipperoonie type stuffs.
Well, like all good writing, show, don't tell. Show the impact of this character's feats. Show just how awesome they are. Don't say this character is awesome. Describe their awesome feats. Describe what they did and how it affected the situation. Like, make it powerful. Make it notable. And the way to do that is... Yes.
I was gonna interject one thing about, if it happens in the story, then you should show. But if it happens beforehand, then maybe it is just somebody else telling this character.
Right, but in order to really show the badass...
for the reader to appreciate it, then you have to put it on
like, you can do that, but you also have to do the showing part as well. You can't just have the reader take certain characters' word for it,
Fair.
Otherwise you get a Gilderoy Lockhart sort of thing going on.
Gilderoy Lockhart was a legend in his own mind.
Or like a Captain Quark.
Well, anyways...
Ratchet and Clank, Harry Potter, we love them.
We do.
Anyways, so make it powerful, make it notable, and the way to do that is have an awesome character who we relate to as a person and understand why they are the way they are. Accomplish incredible feats for the sake of aiding others. Show they're awesome, describe they're awesome, let the reader know exactly why they're awesome, by showing them the awesome moments and letting the impact flow over them. Be awesome! Yeah! Boom! I punched a wall, David.
If you were my brother, you would have broken a hole through it.
I actually kicked a hole in the wall once as a kid. I was really mad.
But that's a kick.
Yeah. I have more leg power than foot power than arm power. So
you have more foot power than arm power, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So for me, I suppose, give the moment that should leave us jaws agape.
Yes.
The gravitas it deserves. Even if it's something as mundane as Rosa Parks insisting on not sitting at the rear on the bus, if that's your climax for this character's arc, let it breathe and impact the witnesses.
Right.
They are proxies for your audience. Badassery takes many forms. So it wouldn't hurt to explore more of them than just the massive 5-army.
You really like referencing the Hobbit battle of the 5 armies, don't you?
How do you really think I've referenced that so many times? Because
you've referenced it twice. The last episode you mentioned specifically a 5-army battle.
Well, I mean, that was the tentpole scene, and I'm just thinking that shows grand spectacle. I haven't even seen the Hobbit films.
We need to show you Lord of the Rings first, and then we'll get to Hobbit. Although I guess
actually, you should show me the Hobbit first because it happened.
Well, no, because
before
the Hobbit actually it a lot of its heartwarming moments rely on you knowing the characters from later. So I think you should see the Lord of the Rings first. Someday
I already know the goddamn books. Why do I need
Nope.
to see
I have
the movies
to
first?
All right, someday when we're living together, we're gonna have a Middle Earth marathon.
Someday when we're living together, you're gonna have to tie me down to a chair to force me to sit through all.
Oh, you'll like them if you read the books and you like the books. You'll have fun watching the movies.
So I'll just watch the movies how I want to, and screw your order. Anyway,
nope, we're gonna have a movie night
in a bunch of forms. So
anyways,
find the other ones that aren't all about combat.
Yes,
because obviously they're not limited to the battlefield.
Right, exactly.
I mentioned earlier taking a stand where no one else does. That doesn't happen in a war so much as it does in a certain moment. It might be related to a war.
Well, it's like
it can happen in peacetime too.
Right, like in Wonder Woman, that part where you saw Wonder Woman, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that part when she's in no man's land, and then they're like, no one can cross this line, and no one has even tried, honestly, because there's too much machine gun fire. And
Didn't they expressly say Oh, wait, maybe I'm thinking of the punchline at the end where she says, well, no man can cross the line or something.
They actually don't actually go that way. They just let you know that's what they're going for, but they don't spell it out your face like that, which is really good. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't,
I like subtle when it's something I can still understand. Unlike women and their hints. I don't get those. That has nothing to do with badass. But
you
anyway,
should watch this great scene
week.
in Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, where the Witch King has Eowyn on the ropes, and he's like, no man can kill me. Then she takes off her helmet, like, I am no man, and then kills him.
So apparently we are both Middle-earth fanboys.
I am, and I'm trying to make
degrees.
you one, even though you've read the books and you like the books. No,
I've read more of it about it than you have. What are you talking about? I'm not
gotta
a fanboy.
watch the movies.
Yeah, because apparently I'm less of a fan for having not seen the movies.
I'd argue yes.
Great logic.
Anyways, that's it for this week. Right? Are we done?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of meandering in this episode. It's not been...
Well, and I already had said that's it, but you went back to Lord of the Rings again.
Well, I thought you were talking about the no man thing.
Meandering is a very good word to describe it. So if you want to get in touch with us and hear more of our meandering or pandering or, any advice...
Or misandering?
Do that.
No, that's not it. Or...
gerrymandering? I don't know. Mansplaining, that's what we do here.
Mansplendering. That sounds dirty. Contact us.
So contact us,
Matt
D. That's
at
with 2 T's.
MatthewDonCreator.com. Yes, 2 T's. For any general questions to either co-host. If you want to follow me personally, follow me at MatthewDonCreator on Facebook, at MatthewDon64 on Twitter, and MatthewDon64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because gadolinium is my favorite element, obviously. Can't get enough of it. I absolutely know what it is and what it's used for. Don't ask me.
As opposed to just looking it up for the joke, right?
Yeah, I totally did not look at a periodic table and say, which one's 64? Which one's 64? Which one's 64? No, I knew.
Alright. Grief. Anyway, for more on badasses, please ask. I don't know if we'll need another episode on it, but you can send us an email. But next week, we'll be back talking about other characters who are awesome. So in the meantime, keep on writing, listeners. We're glad to have you again.
Yep. Always glad to have you listen to our crap.
I'm Matt David.
I'm Matt Donald. So long.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, listeners.
Bye.